Yo, family, welcome to another Friday comic book review. This is your friendly neighborhood host, Jonathan Soul, speaking with you now. We're going to get into this comic, The Legend of Willpower. Dun, 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 dun. The Legend of Willpower. Got it off of willpowercomic.com. My man's in them, Vince White over there at the Powerverse. Let's see who's also on the bill here. Let's see. Willpower created by Vince White. Produced by Darklight Studios. Written by Vince White. Executive edits, Matt Harrison. Spot edits, Mike Federale, Dan Wasco, Julie Fisher. Pencil, letter. That's what I said, pencil. I can't help the way I talk. Tease me like my daughter. Pencil, lettered, inked, colored by Vince White. And he cooks and does the dishes. And the cover, once again, pencils by Vince White, inks by Bill Miggs. It's a hard-working team over there. So let's get into the book. What's Willpower about? Willpower is the fictionalization of this star athlete and son of an incredible scientist who gets caught up in an accident. And next thing you know, he kind of ends up in a very different universe. I think that's a cool way of putting it. And because of how he arrived, he has supernatural abilities. So let's get into it. William Power is a star athlete. You know, we open up with a very interesting dialogue. It looks like they're in ancient Greece or something, right? You know, the little kids are talking to this giant, asking him to, hey, tell us the story of Willpower. And, you know, this giant is huge, right? This giant is huge. And, you know, the way the pages are laid out, I mean, Vince did a damn good job. So this huge, look like almost like a Cyclops. He's not a Cyclops, almost like a Viking type dude. You know, he's talking to these little kids and they're like, yo, you got to tell a story of Willpower. You know, you left out the good parts. He's like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? And so they go back and forth. And then you zoom out and you know how they have that statue of Lincoln. Well, this is a statue of Willpower. But it's huge in the back. So it's really cool. So then we flash back, you know, I guess you could say to the past. And, you know, high school athlete, star, you know, the whole thing. And so him and his friends, they go and visit their his pop down at the studio, at the lab, I should say. Sometimes I call it a studio a lab or the dining room, whichever you prefer. And so, yeah, man. So he, you know, hey, what's up? What's up, Papa Son? What's up with you, baby? You better not call your father, baby. What's up with you, man? You know what I mean? He got his girlfriend and his best boy with him and stuff. And he's like, hey, proud of you, son. You know what I mean? The big game and everything, you know, all that, you know, kind of thing. Look at my invention. So they're going to go through and, well, Mr. Power. That's the girlfriend. You know what I mean? And, wow, Mr. Power, you know what I mean? This is kind of dope. And so she kind of goes through and they're looking and it's like, thanks, family. Just don't touch my shit. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And this seems to be family friendly. So pardon any profanity that may slip out of my heathen tongue. So, yeah, man, you know, yeah, this is really good. Wow, you know, and then I got this gadget over here, and this is the brainwave recorder over there, and, you know, I mean, I might be able to, you know, take care of Alzheimer's and then check it out. This might be a time machine over here, or, you know, coffee grinder, you know, either way. And, you know, and this is my masterpiece, right? My super joint over here. This is my matter density converter. It's like a matter density converter. What's that? Well, you know, it kind of makes things, you know, denser or smaller or whatever. Not smaller, but it makes things heavier. Like, in other words, it kind of moves the space. You know, it kind of adds or reduces space between atoms. That's the way I read it. You know what I mean? Coming from the Marvel Comics education system. And so next thing you know, some fiendish person pulls a lever that they shouldn't have. You know, don't pull the lever, man. And so he does, and then oh shit. And then so the father does what any father would do. He tries to protect the son first and everything like that. And so, what are you doing, Pops? I'm trying to protect you, baby. I'm trying to protect you. This could destroy the complex. You know, it kind of goes through and everything and all that kind of stuff. And he tries to, you know, neutralize the effects, but it's too late. And so it almost gives me this vibration of in Watchmen, when that scientist got caught in that machine and he became Mr. Manhattan. It almost gives me that kind of vibration. But right before the critical moment, this stranger kind of teleports into the lab, and it's like, you know, Looking Glass, when are we? You know what I mean? And Looking Glass almost reminds me of a mother boxer or something. But anyway, this guy, you know, looking like Han Solo, looking like Obi-Wan Kenobi, he kind of come out of the, you know, who are you? What are you doing here? Dad! You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And this guy and everything is disintegrated. Next thing you know, kaboom! And so while all of this stuff is happening, this machine is talking about how the density, not only of the local area, but the Earth and the whole universe, the density has been decreased on a universal level. And so, you know, we fast forward through time, and I don't know if these are flashbacks or whatever. But we go to the present, where we find the athlete, Will, almost kind of stuck in that glass like Fry in Futurama. He's like, shh. He kind of froze like that. So they discover him. They defrost him, I guess you could say. But because the density machine that the Professor Power used kind of reduced the density of everything in the universe, and because he pushed his son into this chamber where he was disaffected, he was not affected by this procedure. He maintained his own density in a sense, and so because of his super density, he's almost like a Superman. He's kind of stronger and denser and more powerful in this lighter universe kind of thing. And so that's part of what gives him his power. And so basically he wakes up in a lab owned by the company that his father started. So 30 years into the future, which I think is cool, the whole idea of legacy and everything. 30 years into the future, his father is kind of still providing for him. That's beautiful. So yeah, so you know, the scientists wake him up and they try to examine him and this, that, and the third. And because everything is the density is lighter, he can see through walls, and you know, he can see all kinds of stuff, and he's super strong and the whole bit. And again, it kind of reminds me almost of like a Superman kind of thing, except there's no red sun, green sun, or yellow sun, or whatever. And so, of course, like any good hero, he gets attacked, and you know, he kind of deals with it or whatever. And there's a very interesting fight that actually kind of goes into issue number 2. So we just kind of, you know, skipped along issue number 1, and I'm showing you the cover now, which I think is dope. Look at the style. Look at Vince White's style. You know, it almost reminds me of it reminds me a little bit of Daoud Onyebuyele, a little bit in terms of just like the elongation of it. And then it also reminds me of kind of like a Funkadelic. You guys, the cats who are, you know, got a little gray in their beard, a little gray in the temples for the sisters. You know what I mean? Y'all remember the Funkadelic covers? How I can't remember the artist, I have to look him up, but he drew all kinds of really interesting little, you know, drawing stuff in the margins, and the way he elongated the human body and stuff. It kind of reminds me of that. His style is really groovy and inker. Well, that's him. That's Vince again. Just did an excellent job. And of course, the cover's dope. So let's go to number 2 real quick. Now, just to give y'all a heads up, I got all 5 issues. Okay. I got Willpower 1, Willpower 2, Willpower 3, Willpower 4, and Willpower 5. I got all of them. And I've read, I think, up to number 3. No, I read up to number 2 at the time of this recording. So let's get into a little bit of number 2. All right, number 2. I love this cover. It almost gives me a Galactus kind of feel to it. It's really good. Let's see. My name is Cosmactus. Cosmactus. Dun, 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 dun. So anyway, so we start out with, on the spot news reporter doing a kind of interview segment or whatever to this super rich guy. And, she's basically asking him, yo, do you think that there's something really happening with the universe? Do you think that, the change that happened, that big burst of light, is going to affect the destiny of mankind? And he says, well, Sophia, if you're asking me if I believe that the Flash marked a new awakening in human consciousness, then yes, I'm a believer. That's basically what he's saying. And so this guy has a history with Will Power's father, the scientist who kind of started all of this. And so we go back into the book where he's fighting this guy, this big, I don't know, electrical monster or whatever. And the pages are so fucking dope, man. Look at this spread. You know what I mean? Look at this spread, man. Now, I don't like how this brother's talking to Mr. Professor Powers. He's probably telling him to go take a long walk off a short pier, but he got too much class for that, I suppose. But you see this guy who was being interviewed 30 years into the future, basically saying, we want you to produce Professor Power. And, we wouldn't want nothing to happen to you or your son or your kids or anything. That'd be a shame. You understand? I'm not trying to say that anything untoward, but I'm just saying, but I'm not saying, if you know what I mean. Nope. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing, happening. So he's got some serious pressure. Then boom, we flash back to the future or the present. And Will, is facing this giant, scary monster guy. And it turns out to be a construct, a solid light construct by this villain. Now stop. Right here is where I laughed out loud when I was reading this book. You know why? Because doggone it, Vince put a crossword puzzle in the middle of a comic. Well, I'll be goddamn. I'll be goddamn. You know what I mean? I was like, this is so boss. You want kids to read this book. I was going to clear my language. Kids to read this book. This is so cool. He actually puts a crossword puzzle in this thing. One of the wonderful results of this African arts renaissance, and I'm not saying African American anymore. Why? Because it's happening all over. If you guys go to jonathansoul.com, look at the interview I did around the Self-Flux comic book. That's a husband and wife team out of Trinidad and Tobago. That's a long way from DC. That's a long way from Philly. But comics is, art is popping down there. Art is popping back on the motherland. So I'm talking about an arts movement, an arts renaissance, right? I mean, I could be talking about the number of podcasters that have just exploded from the African diaspora. African people in England. Of course, African American people here. I'm talking about all over. I'm just focusing on fiction, sci-fi, comics. That's my focus, right? It's exploding. It's exploding. And one of the side effects, one of the results of it is that it's giving our kids a reason to read again. I'm not talking about reading broken English on social media. I'm talking about reading whole sentences, full thoughts in fiction and comics. In the 80s, there was a thing where you would see all the time people with that Malcolm X book reading on the train. It was such a beautiful thing. You rarely see, I rarely see, me personally, right? Young African people reading on the train, reading physical books. They're reading all right. They're reading social media updates and statuses and stuff like that. But to have an opportunity to read about characters from their own, fictional community, I think is so beautiful. So anyway, so he puts a crossword puzzle in here. That's terrific. So anyway, let's keep going. In his father's company, there's a security officer, and he brings his people to bear on this villain that is attacking Willpower. And, so he fights back, and this guy is obviously technically savvy because he's able to hack the backpacks, the jetpacks of the security officers and send them flying. And so he has to, then he turns his attentions back to Willpower. And Willpower is starting to get angry. And he's starting to get mad. Why? Because he talked ish about his father. And as he gets angry and as he gets mad, Willpower's density increases. And he gets stronger or more powerful. And then there's other effects like a gravitational thing that's happening. And all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, that portal opens up. And that same Obi-Wan Kenobi looking character pops out. And he's able to calm Will down. And he's able to use a device that can kind of counter the effects of his rage. Because at this point, it doesn't seem like he can control it. So once the guy does that, Will is back to normal. And it looks like he's found the ally. So it goes on, but I'm going to stop here. Why? Because I want you to buy the book and because my throat is getting sore. So listen, I love you guys. Go over to willpowercomic.com. You see that little masthead here, willpowercomic.com. And let me tell you something here, right? Let me tell you something. Now, I am pro everybody. I'm focused on pro Africans, okay? And one of the aspects of Africans is there's a certain part of our community that loves to kind of draw everybody in. Hey, everybody come over. We got a platform, a kumbaya, not, I mean, I don't mean that in a facetious way, kind of vibration, everybody. And so that's the vibe. Let's say cosmopolitan. That's a better way of saying it. That's the vibe that you got if you guys listen to my interview with Selflux, and that's the vibe that you get when you go over to Willpower. Because over in Willpower, right, in the Power universe, he got everybody. It's just not African people over there. He got all types of brothers and sisters that's over there. So, if that's what you're into, I think this is something you should check out. This is a book that has definitely a tremendous broad appeal, and they have some tremendous talent over there. And they got a lot of titles. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that they've done, which I think is magnificent, is that Vince White, he teamed up with Roosevelt Pitt Jr., who is an icon from the 90s art comic renaissance, who developed the character Purge. He also teamed up with Jay Kelly, no relation to Jim Kelly, who is the creator of The Brother, another iconic figure, although, more recent. And they all three of these brothers teamed up and came up with this crossover book called Blackout, The Eradication Protocols. And so they're operating in the Power universe, right, established by Vince. And then Roosevelt is bringing his character Purge, which is almost like I don't want to say an Iron Man analog. I would say an Iron Man, Iron Man Black Panther analog. That's the spirit of it. And then you had The Brother, which is like Malcolm X and Doctor Who, right? So these two brothers come together to fight this threat, this I don't want to say interdimensional threat because I haven't read the whole book, but I would just say this interdimensional threat that's affecting or threatening African people through different time periods. And they're fighting this threat. And so these three brothers came together, they did a successful Kickstarter, which had the honor and privilege of helping them, get the word out. And so they're just doing a tremendous work over here. You really need to avail yourselves of this kind of stuff. Become a part of this community before it becomes vogue. Before it becomes vogue. Don't wait until the $1 billion for-profit media, wakes up and says, "Oh shit, we can't sell them another Batman movie. We better come up with something new." And then they look around for these guys. Get hip to this now. This is the kind of stuff, if you're a nerd or a blurred or whatever they call themselves these days, if you're one of them type folks, you will enjoy this, because you're gonna have me go on my soapbox. I don't want to go on my soapbox. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. What I'm gonna tell you is, from the outside looking in, it does look a little pitiful to constantly complain about diversity when the means of productions is so easily attainable. It's kind of funny to talk about diversity when your brother is over here creating something of the same quality. It makes it seem a little schizophrenic. It's not really diversity that you're looking for. It's acceptance by people who don't give a about you. And that's mental. So free your mind and your butt will follow. Check out willpowercomic.com. This is Jonathan Soul, your friendly neighborhood podcaster. I love you guys. JonathanSoul.com. Peace.